When this was a lawn, we had to work very hard to keep the weeds under control. Now that it's a vegetable garden, we do next to nothing. Today I'll talk about how we turned a high-maintenance, weedy lawn into a productive, low-maintenance vegetable garden where weeds are at worst a minor inconvenience. The first thing we did was to sheet mulch the whole yard to smother out both the grass and the weeds. Many years ago in the fall, we covered the entire yard with brown corrugated cardboard, overlapping the pieces to ensure complete coverage. Everywhere we wanted a walking path, we covered the cardboard with a few inches of wood chips. Everywhere we wanted a garden bed, we covered the cardboard with compost, autumn leaves, grass clippings, and used coffee grounds. This is an approach called lasagna gardening or sheet mulch gardening. In the spring, we also built some raised beds directly on top of the cardboard and filled them with soil before planting. By the next spring, the weeds were practically gone. Of course, there were some, but they were easy to manage. So with just one application of sheet mulch, we went from a very difficult weed problem to one that was easily manageable. To plant the new garden beds, we simply punched holes in the cardboard for tomatoes, peppers, and other transplants, and planted seeds directly in the compost on top of the cardboard. Sheet mulching not only suppressed weeds, it also added organic matter and nutrients to the soil and increased its nutrient and water holding capacity. After that initial application of sheet mulch, we've continued to keep weeds at bay over the years, using mulch, but without the sheets of cardboard. We usually apply more wood chips to the walking paths in spring, and keep our garden beds mulched with unfinished compost, autumn leaves, grass clippings, comfrey, used coffee grounds, chop and drop garden waste, and sometimes wood chips. We always add mulch to the top of the soil and never till or turn the soil. This approach continues to bury weed seeds deeper and deeper, making it more and more difficult for them to sprout. Though tilling provides the temporary satisfaction of removing weeds, it also brings new weed seeds back to the surface where they can germinate, which only makes the problem worse in the long run. When weeds do emerge in the garden, they're easy to pull, roots and all, from the loose organic mulch. Though sheet mulch and mulch alone put weeds at a significant disadvantage, we still have a few more tricks up our sleeves. The first is intensive gardening. By planting crops close together, we not only crowd out weeds and increase the productivity of the garden, but we also create a living mulch that shades the soil and helps prevent weed seeds from germinating. It's going to be hard for weeds to germinate in the shade of these kale plants, and harder still under these intensively planted potatoes. If you're new to intensive gardening, you can learn more about plant spacing in books like Square Foot Gardening by Mel Bartholomew and How to Grow More Vegetables by John Jevons. Another strategy is to grow at least some crops that grow like weeds themselves and can outcompete unwanted weeds. This garden bed, for example, is full of self-sowing annuals and edible perennials. They're so prolific, they crowd out weeds and don't give them a chance to grow. We rarely have to weed this garden bed. In another part of the garden, you can see volunteer mustard greens that have taken over an area. Yes, we have to aggressively harvest these crops to keep them from self-sowing and taking over the entire garden, but I'd rather aggressively harvest food than pull weeds. Another great way to keep weeds under control is by eating edible weeds. There's a plant in this bed that some consider to be a super weed, but others consider to be a super food. There's volunteer amaranth in our garden every year. Amaranth is rich in calcium and iron and vitamins A and C. We let some grow to maturity, but these seedlings are in a poor location. They can grow to be 6 or 7 feet tall, and they'll shade out other plants in this bed. However, rather than discard them like weeds, we add them to salads and other dishes. We also eat other weeds like dandelions, lamb's quarters, and wood sorrel. It's a great way to keep them under control while enjoying their benefits at the same time. Of course, never eat a weed from your garden unless you're sure you've identified it correctly. EdibleWildFood.com is a good resource when trying to identify edible weeds. Of course, even after taking these measures, we do have to pull a weed every now and then. But there are so few of them, and they're so easy to pull thanks to the mulch, that it hardly resembles what most people think of as weeding. It really is as close to do-nothing weeding and do-nothing gardening as you can get. Well, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, remember, you can change the world one yard at a time.